Hello, I'm Nick Park, and welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. We're following a series called The Biblical Game of Thrones. We are looking at the kings of Israel and of Judah, and we're seeing how all the way from King Saul right through to the end of the period of the kings, there was so much maneuvering went on, there was politics, there was plotting and conspiring, and yet behind it all, God was still at work and still fulfilling his purposes, preparing for the coming of Jesus Christ. And today we're looking at two kings. And these are both kings in the northern kingdom. So this is the 10 tribes that had split away originally from Jerusalem and they had their capital city in Samaria, and they had centers of worship set up in Dan and Bethel with golden calves. And Nadab, first of all, Nadab was the son of Jeroboam. So Nadab was the second king of the northern kingdom. But you know what? He was a dead man walking. Why? Because a prophet had already confronted his father and told him that because of his disobedience, because even though God had promised that Jeroboam could have had a great dynasty and a household like David, if he followed the ways of the Lord, walked in obedience and walked in faith, that Jeroboam had chosen instead, for political reasons, to set up idolatrous centers in Bethel and Dan. And so as a result, the same prophet sent a message from his deathbed saying to Jeroboam that his entire family was going to be wiped out. And so now Jeroboam's son, Nadab, comes to the throne. So that's why I'm calling him a dead man walking. The prophecy was already in operation after the death of his father. In fact, the prophecy had said that all the descendants of Jeroboam would die and their bodies wouldn't even be buried. That if they died in the city, their bodies would be eaten by the dogs. And if they died in the countryside, their bodies would be eaten by the birds. That's a blood-curdling prophecy indeed, isn't it? That's not like the kind of prophecies you normally hear in a church, for example. Now, probably nothing that Nadab did would have made a difference whenever that prophecy had been given against an entire household. But maybe if he had at least tried to follow the ways of the Lord, it could have been delayed. We do often see that in Scripture. God's judgment is delayed for a generation or two when somebody repents and walks in the ways of the Lord. But Nadab didn't. He only reigned for 2 years. And what Scripture says about him is very depressing. 1 Kings 15:26 says of Nadab, "He did what was evil in the sight of the Lord and walked in the way of his father and in his sin, which he made Israel to sin." So he was just as bad, if not worse, as his father. And so the same judgment came upon him. And while he was besieging a Philistine town, Baasha, one of his subjects, instead launched a conspiracy against him and murdered him. And there's no record of his burial in Scripture, probably because, according to the prophecy, he was either eaten by dogs or eaten by birds. And Baasha took over, and Baasha reigned for 23 years. But he was also a wicked ruler. And eventually another prophet, Jehu, pronounced the same judgment over Baasha that had been pronounced over Jeroboam, that he and all his descendants would be wiped out and not a trace of them left in Israel. And that did happen. That took place. So he failed to learn from the mistakes of others. Because there's two ways that we can learn things. We can learn from the mistakes of others. That's the easiest way to learn, and it's the most painless way to learn. The hard way and the painful way to learn is to learn from making our own mistakes. That's why I believe in studying history, because that's why I believe in studying the lives of people in the Bible. That's why I believe it's good to look at these kings. You might say, why are we doing these studies? What's inspiration about looking at these kings? Because even if we can learn from their mistakes, it means we don't have to make the same mistakes ourselves and learn the hard way. There's an easy way and a hard way to learn any lesson. Baasha is an example of somebody who refused to learn the easy way and ended up learning the hard way. May God give us the wisdom as we look at the lives of these kings to learn the lessons, to learn the lesson well, to walk in the ways of the Lord. And if we can learn that lesson the easy way rather than the hard way, It's been worthwhile and we've done well. May God bless you today. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.